Hi, this is instructor Jennifer Miller from the Producing class, and you're watching part 2 of our Movie Magic Budgeting tutorial video. Next, we're going to learn 2 new features of Movie Magic Budgeting, which are using globals and fringes. Let's start off with globals. Globals are characters used to replace a number. For example, let's say your upcoming production is going to be 6 days in length. We can use the letter S or the word shoot or anything else we want to represent the time period of 6 days. You can change the number associated with the word in one place, and then it'll be changed everywhere in your budget. This can save you a lot of time if your production time changes, and it can also let a student easily see the differences in cost based on the number of production days you are planning. Globals should be one of the very first things you do to set up your budget before you begin working in each category. To get started, you have 2 options for opening globals. You can go to Setup, Globals, or Command G for a shortcut, or you can go to the button that looks like the Earth, and that's also your Setup Globals shortcut. So I'm going to click on that and go ahead and open it up. It should open up with a default group. And we're going to begin by clicking on the 3rd button in from the left, which is adding 1 new global. The first thing it's asking us for is the name of this global. Now, you guys can make up any name that you want in any categories that you want. To keep it simple, so things don't get too confusing, I'd like you to think of 3 different possible global categories, which would be pre, for pre-production stage, pro for the production stage, and post for the post-production stage. So each stage of production could have its own global information. For today's tutorial, we're going to create a global for the production stage. So I'm going to use the letters PRO to be the name. Okay, this should also be kind of a short version because that's what will show up within your detail layer tab. Now let's move to description and describe what this global is. This is the production time, and you can even include the name of your project if you want. Now let's go over to calculation. Calculation means the number of units that you'll want to include for this global. So we said earlier our example was that this shoot that we're working on is going to be a 6-day shoot. So for calculation, I'm going to put the number 6, and for units, I'll put the letter D to represent days. The next column is decimal precision. We're not going to go into this right now, so I'm going to leave this column blank, but if you want to learn more about decimal precision, you can check out the Entertainment Partners tutorial video series. We'll see the total value is already calculated for us as 6. Now that we're done adding our global for production time, we can go ahead and close out of our globals window. Now let's look at how I would add a global to my detail layer in the budget. Let's go to our makeup and hair category. We'll go to our makeup artist and down to our details layer. Under description, we're going to put the makeup artist's fee. This button on the left here is the indicator button. The indicator button will let you know if you are using any globals or fringes. So you won't be able to physically type anything in here. That'll just appear automatically if you've activated your globals or your fringes, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now you're going to add the globals into the amount window. Okay, so before we get to that, let's say the rate for our makeup artist is $75 per day. Now under amount, we're going to add in our global name. If you recall, the shortcut global name was PRO for Pro. After you type that in, click out on any other button, and you'll see that that created our global 6 days. It also turned globals on in our indicator window. And it multiplied our rate of $75 a day by our production period of 6 days to give us the subtotal of $450 spent for our makeup artist's fees. Once again, the good thing about globals is if your number of production days ever changes, you don't have to go into every single line item or layer where you've added the global information. Instead, you can just go back to your global setup window, change the calculation. Let's say now I'm only able to shoot for 5 days, not 6. Close this out. Now if we go back to our makeup and hair category, you'll see that our amount was automatically adjusted down to 5 days. So again, that's why you want to set up globals at the very beginning. So if you do need to change those numbers, it will automatically apply it to all the work you have done after that point. Now that we've learned about globals, let's talk about fringes. Fringe benefits, or fringes for short, are the extra costs that get added to the price of an item or a person's fee. For example, sales tax is a common example of a fringe benefit. Another example might be union fees. Like globals, we're going to set up our fringes in advance before completing our budget. To do this, we'll go to our setup window and find fringes, or use the shortcut Command 3. This will open up our setup fringes window. You'll see that you can set up your fringes in 2 different ways. You can set up fringe benefits by percentages or by flat rates per unit. Let's talk about an example of a percentage. For example, if you're shooting in the state of Pennsylvania, you may have to pay the Pennsylvania state sales tax. So I'm going to put PA tax and then add my description. Oops. The ID is the ID information that will actually show up in your details layer. So again, we want to make this very short and concise. So I'll just say PAT for PA tax. You can make this whatever you want. Then you're going to put in the amount. The state sales tax for Pennsylvania is 6.0 currently. Cutoff is the total amount that you may have to spend for this fringe. We're not going to get into cutoffs too much today because they're going to require students to perform some additional steps using ranges in the details layer. But you can find more information about cutoffs in the Entertainment Partners video series on YouTube if needed. So I'm going to leave cutoffs blank. And then I have this all set up for my Pennsylvania state sales tax with the code PAT. Now let's talk about an example of fringe benefits by flat rate per unit. One example is if you have an employee or independent contractor who is entitled to Teamster union dues. I'm going to type in the name Teamster here. Add the union dues information. TUD will be my ID code that I've made up. Again, there's no right or wrong answer for that. And then my rate, let's just say for an example, is 2.36. And my units is a flat rate per hour. Now normally there would be a cutoff for this union dues that you'd only have to pay so much. If there were a cutoff, let's say of $10,000, you could add that in here. When you're finished adding in your fringes, hit OK. Now one thing that I want to point out here is that you can activate different line items in your detail layer by selecting these buttons. The first is your aggregate fringe amount, then fringes. You can turn on or off groups, which we won't be talking about today, but is an option that you can take advantage of using the Movie Magic application to group different line items. Generally, for a smaller budget, you won't be needing this category. You can also add location information if you wish, set information, and if you're working outside of the country, it's a good idea to add the currency line. Let's go back to our top sheet, and to add in the example of our fringe today, let's look at the props category. I'm going to go down to prop purchases and navigate down to my details layer. You'll remember that I've already turned on my aggregate and fringe amounts. So fringe is the window that we want to look at today for applying our fringe that we just created. Now here in our props detail layer, you're going to add the description information for the prop that you'll be purchasing. For this example, let's say that I am purchasing breakaway beer bottles, which are the kind of faux beer bottles that you can smash on an actor's head, but it's not real glass, so it won't hurt them. So let's say you can purchase these breakaway bottles in a 6-pack at the Prop Warehouse in Pennsylvania. For amount, we only need these for one of our shoot days, so we don't have to multiply the amount by our entire 6-day shoot period. So I'm going to keep that at 1. For units, we're working in days. And I only need 1 pack because there's 6 in a pack, so that should be more than enough. So now I'm ready to add my rate information. And the rate that I found this 6-pack at in a Pennsylvania Prop Warehouse is $59. So now you'll see our total cost for one 6-pack of breakaway bottles for 1 day's time is $59 total. Now we're ready to add our fringe information in here. Go to the F% icon, which is a shortcut to apply fringes. You'll notice it opens our View Apply Fringes window. And we have the 2 fringes that we already created, the PA sales tax and the Teamster fees. So I'm going to add on the PA sales tax by clicking on the little checkbox next to the one we want. If I wanted to add Teamster on, I could also add that, and you'll see it adds it up here to our fringe window. But we don't need the Teamster fees for this, so we're just going to keep on the PA sales tax. Once you're done, you can just hit the X button to close out. Now you'll see that we have the 6% PA sales tax added to our rate. But you'll also notice that the subtotal is still at $59. If we go back to our top sheet, however, and navigate down to props, you'll see that the props total is $59, but if you move all the way down to the bottom for total fringes, you'll see that there is $4 worth of Pennsylvania sales tax paid on that props category that's now being added to our grand total amount for the top sheet. If you ever want to remove the fringe that you add, just go back to the detail layer, go back to your fringe apply button, and then unclick the PA sales tax and close it out. And that will remove your fringe information. Something else I want to go over today is the use of allowances. Now you'll see that some allowances are listed in your line items already, but you can always add in more if you want to. For example, let's go to our cast category description. And you'll see that we have overtime allowances in here. Allowances are funds that are put aside just in case you might need them. You can create and add allowance line items if you want for any category. For example, if we go back to our makeup and hair and you want to add an allowance in case it costs more than you expected, or you want to add on additional zombie extras at the last minute or anything like that, all you have to do is right click on the last number in the row and go to Insert Row. Add on the new account number, which will just be the next number in the series. And then we'll say Makeup Allowances. And let's say I want to go into my allowances. Then you can go through and fill this out as usual and add the extra fee. So let's say the amount that I want to add is $20 a day, just in case I need it, and that's for my entire production, which, remember, we now revised down to a 5-day production. Okay, so now I have an extra $100 that's sort of set aside as an allowance cost for makeup. Now, it's important to note that your allowance funding could be lost. In other words, if you don't ever need it, you may not be able to get it back at a later stage in the game. So it's a good idea to always try to estimate as close as possible within your actual budget and limit the amount of allowances that you are setting aside. Let's go through some of the most common categories that you may be using on a student production. Starting at the top, we have cast, and you may want to look at your main cast, any expenses affiliated with the auditions process, if you're working with any SAG actors. You also want to look at extras if you're paying stand-ins or general background extras. Another common thing that you're going to want to spend money on is under set operation, and that is craft services, which is your catering. Even if you have the lowest possible budget, guys, I expect you to at least have to spend money on gas if you're traveling anywhere outside of your house, and catering costs, because you should always be feeding your cast and crew, even if it's just a $5 Little Caesars pizza. Hair and makeup is another common category for student projects. Even if you get that hair and makeup at a discounted rate, a good idea is to go check out the hair and makeup schools and get another student to perform these services for you at a discounted rate. Under the transportation category, that's where you have your gas and oil and any car, truck, or van rental that you'll be taking out for the production. And then some students may have location costs. So if you have to pay for location rental fees or any purchases affiliated with that location's needs. You may also have parking costs if you're shooting at a city or if your crew needs to park in a parking garage. And finally, insurance. It's recommended that you do have insurance if possible. And you can fill out general liability or cast insurance or anything else that you'd like to add in here. Remember, guys, you can add in line items anywhere in your budget that you'd like. So any categories that you'd like to add to your top sheet, once again, all you do is right-click and go to Insert Row. Or within any of these already prepared categories, if you need to add in additional account layers, you're more than welcome to do that. Make sure your grand total amount is correct based on the information that you're entering. I do want to show you how it is possible to save out a PDF of the top sheet. That's by going to File, Print, and then under this PDF tab, you can choose Save as PDF. However, that's only going to save out your top sheets. And contact your instructor if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and best of luck with your thesis project budget.